How aviation subsidies allow 0.1% joyriding tyrants to profit from harming you, your family, and your future.
Pilots from this airport and thousands of general aviation airports across the country are needlessly, recklessly, and unapologetically harming and endangering lives. Their pollutants, especially lead and noise, have dropped America's IQ. This is making our country less competitive, sustainable, and this pollution increases violence. It's disgusting that any community leadership would be including revenue and economics, which include these fossil fuel chugging machines and subsidies, and count it as a benefit to their bottom line. This kills your constituents and the planet. To continue doing so can only be called misguided, dishonest, destructive, and communistic. Las Vegas is turning into a gutter and an embarrassment to our country. I do believe you have underestimated the impact of such horrific noise, lead pollution, and biodiversity loss. I encourage you to look at the massive increase in violence and reduction of lifespan and compare it to premature deaths and violence correlated to location of noise and lead exposure, starting in your own community. There are thousands of studies and endless information which proves allowing this to continue not only devalues our property, it has devalued our country's resiliency, endangered citizens across the country as demonstrated in recent plane crashes, it has reduced intelligence and our country's position on the world stage. The behavior of General Aviation, coupled with the willful, and in places intentional pollution, vast amounts of public funds, no real cost analysis, and the undeniable and unqualified harms equates to daily unabated human rights violations against the American people, who endure aviation's untenable toxic scourge. Furthermore, we have an extinction problem exceeding rate of dinosaur die-off. The sheer amount of species removal for aviation is greatly understated. Aviation's abusive and egregious activity goes far beyond cruelty and human rights violations. It is ecocide, murderous, and suicidal. We must act in every community to stop the pollution and pitting aviation benefactors against the American people. Protect our lives, our resiliency, our children, our communities, our wildlife, and our future by realizing cascading harms which remain unaccounted for. Immediately halt further growth of your general aviation airports. Demand that the FAA and NTSB immediately enforce standards and regulation and prioritize protecting citizens and prosecute offenders to the fullest extent of the law. No more human rights violations against citizens of this country from aviation. Stop allowing the crippling, stupefying, and killing of citizens by unnecessary and unjustifiable general aviation. Be part of the solution.
As your airports are shut down and your flights are delayed, just know all services to 15,000 general aviation airports and airstrips are still on. Always catering to the wealthy. Those who can afford a $250,000 plane or, several $1 million jet, whatever. Those are the guys who get service, not you peasants who pay for the airport.
A terribly polluted airshed has an aviation planner that doesn't care, is invading privacy laws, leaking information to rogue air pilots, and is retaliating and provoking residents. Great. Just great. Absolutely unbelievable. This is how they treat us, despicably and with resentment to make money for aviation degenerates thrown out of other airports and cities.
There are 20,000 nuisance airports in our minority communities. These airports are responsible for 70% of toxic air floating around. Our families breathe this contamination air. These airports are for the most part subsidized by our tax dollars. Why are my tax dollars going to subsidize airports that bring lead-contaminated air and noise pollution into our communities? There is no safe level of lead, and day in and day out our children are being neurologically and physically damaged by these nuisance airports. Flying an airplane is a luxury. Breathing clean, lead-free air and living under quiet skies are a necessity for all communities. How much longer are we going to let our communities be sacrificed for Doan's personal hobby? Children over profits.
I called Derek in Susie Lee's office to complain about these aerobatic planes flying like crazy above our heads. Every 10 minutes or so, Derek is rude and indifferent towards the suffering of the residents and did not care that Susie Lee lost our vote. Derek was gloating and happy that Susie Lee lost our votes. Derek and Susie Lee do not care about old folk like us voting for them or not. They do not care about senior citizens and how this toxic air pollution is affecting our health.
Real life on the ground always comes after aviation interests, no matter how trivial, superficial, and unnecessary those activities may be. And even though the public is forced to subsidize these activities through free land donations and free capital improvements paid for by taxpayers, It's legal corruption enabled by the FAA, and it's disgusting.
The impacts General Aviation and abusive GA mob, low-flying helicopters, small planes, stunt planes, and thrill joyriders impose upon those below are significant, especially noise and fear and stress reactions. Plus, too often, the margin of safety is cut too thin, leading to fatal accidents. Residents get to endure decades of stress and auditory torture, while their properties become increasingly less inhabitable. The airport-related pollutants and the traffic congestion destroy previously idyllic places. Homes become rundown rentals. Commercial blight sets in, including seedy lodging and expansive rental car and parking lots. Businesses catering to air travelers emerge, often with larger crime problems. Nude bars, pawn shops, liquor stores and pot shops, and lots of empty shops abandoned due to the blight. Property values drop, making it that much easier for federal funds to buy even more airport lands. The imbalance of power between the aviation community and the non-aviation community has only worsened. A minority increasingly dominates the majority in a classic inequity. This inequity is wrong. Reforms are long overdue and require action by Congress and FAA. When will they step up and fix this? Protect your environment, protect your children, protect your home, and protect your community. Be the activist who pushes back when FAA and aviation industry cross the line. Thank you for your support.